and welcome to my project, Narrative of a Life. I'm the artist, Julia Louise, and each week I work on painting candid stills from my life, and as I paint, I talk about the events and feelings of another week of living. This week, I'm finally starting a new painting. Just a panel board, so I'm hoping to finish it all in a week. I chose this picture from last August in Seaside. Paul and I had a little weekend vacation, and he taught me how to skimboard. I figured out real quick that I'd rather take pictures of him boarding than do it myself, and so we have this beautiful little moment in time. The water effects are complicated, and I'm nervous for it, so let's get to it. April 21st. I woke up and fought with Paul. I don't even know why. He came to say good morning and cuddle, and everything rubbed me wrong, and I straight up pushed him out of the bed and stopped responding to him until he left. This is when I hate myself. When I do emotionally driven things I don't even understand, and just shut down and throw a tantrum. So far all day, I've been escalating from that stupid, dumb point I still don't understand. I called my mom a few times. I also hung up on my mom a few times. When Paul came back from the gym, we didn't talk to each other, so when he was in the shower, I took his keys, and now I'm sitting in a parking lot, trying not to ruin my mascara. My goal is to drop off applications, do other errands. It's sunny, there are robins bouncing around, and I'm working out the logistics of which car I can most responsibly drive into a streetlight. I really don't understand myself in these moods. What even went wrong? Literally nothing. And every part of me wants to cease existing. God, you never get over depression, do you? This isn't depression though, this is me, making stupid choices and having stupid consequences. Well, okay, I tried to replace my lost license, but they were closed. And so I found a private parking spot and cried myself into a nap in the backseat. Then I went home, avoided Paul some more, finally started talking, and as soon as I started talking, everything finally started de-escalating. We got dinner and watched a movie and just talked a lot. Feels like a really dumb, wasted day. I'm glad I calmed down. In some ways, having Paul there to calm me down is really a detriment. I feel like I could manage myself better when it was just me. Now there's him, and things go way more extreme because he's in the way to bounce all of my frenzied emotions off. And that makes them worse. I'm less capable of calming myself down on my own these days, it seems. I'm worried. I'm worried I'm too dysfunctional. I'm always worried I'm too dysfunctional. I've talked a lot today. I just hope someone out there relates to this struggle. I feel like the only person I know who truly can't handle her own emotional states. But I know that's not true. It can't be. For now, Louise out. April 22nd. Today was simple and pleasant, thank goodness. I edited a video and I grocery shopped with Paul. Literally, that's it. When we picked some recipes to get ingredients for, I picked one with milk. Paul then informed me that our days of using real milk in our recipes is coming to a close because RFK Jr. deregulated milk. Because this is America, the land of the free. You are free to put chalk in milk and sell it in grocery stores. I do try to avoid talking about anything too political, and I do that for a reason. My whole goal here is to show how similar our lives can really be, and pointing fingers and creating enemies is a great way to cause more rifts. I'm really not a Democrat, but I'm certainly not a Republican. Really, I'm just concerned. I'll sign off and end my politics rant. But I do want to add, the whole chalk in the milk thing isn't an exaggeration. My dad still doesn't like to drink the bottom of the milk jug because he grew up with such sorts of additives. That's all. Louise out. April 23rd. A productive day from start to finish. Woke up and went to the gym with Paul. My climbing session was cut short because I managed to rip the crotch of my pants. They're really loose and baggy, but when it's caught around the knee, it pulls the fabric a lot. Paul had the same pants, and they ripped in the same spot. I didn't really want to flash my bright blue granny panties around the gym, so I went and did weights because the upstairs section didn't have any people there. I figured out I couldn't do my normal workout though because I have a healing tattoo around my elbow. I tried planking on a cushion and only using half of my forearm, but I just couldn't do it, and I planted my elbow some of the time. Shouldn't do that. Gonna ruin my fancy new tattoo that way. I'll have to figure out something to replace planks while it heals. So sad. After the gym, I showered and slapped on some makeup and applied to a bunch of places in person. At a winery, I had a good chat with the manager, and I might be able to show some of my art there in the future. She loved my work, and I'm really hopeful for any of the opportunities that we chatted about. Like maybe teaching a paint and sip for them. Very encouraging. I also had a moment I'll be remembering and cringing at for the foreseeable future. I handed over my application and the woman in charge asked me what my specialty bartending drink was. I said a Manhattan because my brain stopped working and it's the first thing I thought of. She asked how I make it and I said I put a large ice cube in the glass and then I pour over some whiskey and, oh, sorry, it's just been so long since I've made one. She followed up with, but do you know what's in it? And I said Angostura bitters and whiskey and ice, forgetting the garnish and the sweet vermouth. I was too on the spot. And frankly, I was never that good a bartender. I'd look up nearly every drink, nearly every time. The Utah Country Club I worked at didn't have many cocktail drinkers, mostly just beer and wine. I'm naively hopeful I'll still hear back from her. For dinner, we tried this new Asian American fusion restaurant, and we both got burgers that were just too tall to eat. Phenomenal food, but we had to cut it up and couldn't get it all together the same way. That's the problem with gourmet burgers. I simply can't unhinge my jaw to eat them properly. I had some time to kill after dinner though, so I brought out my tattoo stuff to touch up one of my tats that I did last year. I feel very empowered being able to tattoo myself. And I don't know what mindset I'm in lately, but this tattoo didn't hurt much either. It hurt way more when I did the first 2 sessions on it, so I know it's not just the placement. But now I'm covered in bandages for healing tattoos, because I also touched up an old one I did while I was set up. But that ended my day. Now I'm hoping my saran wrap home bandages don't come off when I sleep. I already got black tattoo ink and plasma on my white bedding once this week. Still to be determined if it comes out fully. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Louise out. April 24th. Well, I meant to video edit today, but Paul was home, so I painted more grids. Paul does offer his computer, but we both know he'd rather be on it, and it makes me a very anxious and unhappy editor. I taught a class of flower paintings today. Always love those. It was a very comfortable and happy class environment. Honestly, I did maybe my best at explaining the painting, and I was coherent and funny and brought just enough energy in. Only got $2 in tips, but I know they loved me. Tips can be a weird judge of customer satisfaction, not really accurate. I learned as a waitress that you cannot control if someone chooses to tip. You can only control if they purposefully don't. And I don't want to sound greedy. I get not tipping every time you spend money on anything. I totally get it. But I just used my tip money for a tattoo, and I wouldn't mind saving up for another one, so you know. For dinner, we tried a weird family recipe of ground beef, onions, and cheese baked inside a hollowed-out loaf of French bread. It was decidedly meh, like an overcomplicated burger, really. That was my day, though. Pleasant and calm. Louise out. April 25th. An exciting and colorful day today. The colors started when Paul and I went to the big tulip festival in Washington. We woke up early to drive a ways, and when we pulled up, it was perfectly sunny. We got a stellar parking spot, and we joined the beautifully dressed crowd with our own fun, colorful outfits. The tulips were just stunning. The fresh smell in the air was unmatched. People kept walking between the rows for pictures, and I booed them at a volume I was sure they could not hear me at. While we walked, Paul and I talked about the Venn diagram overlap of grind set and Alpha Sigma mentalities. If anyone listened to our lovely conversation, they could have heard such stray sentences as, well, yeah, I've gotta have power over women. If I have enough money, I should be able to buy them. They're the serving class after all. We came to the shared understanding that the Alpha Sigma mindset is about the relationship to control, and the grind set mindset is its own broader thing that all Alpha Sigma minded people also adopt. Fun convo. I love discussing our understandings of things. Our drive to the tulips was long, but fine. Our drive back was nearly doubled because of traffic. We planned for traffic, but we got caught anyway. Stopping for food helped the morale, but that was a long time stuck on the freeway. I painted more grids when we settled back home. I'm so close to finishing this massive, long-opened project. I have no more table space for all my gradients. My studio is simply overflowing with colors. The last colorful moment of my day interrupted my colorful grids. A little after midnight, I was so very stoned and listening to my audiobook when the sound of someone banging on a door wafted in, and the distant shout of, "Police, open up!" By the time I processed what I heard, I was panicked and at the front door. One of our neighbors had a cop car in front of it with lights on blast, so I grabbed Paul and we watched the situation unfold. So many cops. Lights blending into each other to create a purple glow on the lawn. They had a megaphone. They had a battering ram. They flew a drone. They had dogs. They kept yelling, "We know you're in there! Come out with your hands up!" They did several perimeter checks. It looked like they were expecting him to run. After an hour of yelling and pounding and no motion, they barged in. I heard them all chant Miranda rights in unison before they went in. We watched as close as we could, but we couldn't see anything inside. Minutes passed. Then someone from the squad came out and put the riot shield away, and another guy poked around the attic, while more of them started shining their lights through the trees in the backyard. The guy wasn't there. All that confident yelling, all that force, the fucking drone, and he wasn't in the house. That's really hilarious if you ask me. I was getting vaguely concerned over Schuyler being in the window just in case any shooting happened. We had a direct line of sight and all. Turned out empty. All those lights shining on abandoned shapes. The police reports I found say it was a domestic violence call for second-degree assault, specifically choking. I had no idea the whole squad came out for a domestic violence call. Not sure if something else is going on. I finished painting my grids for the night and occasionally checked in to see the changes. They cleared out pretty quick. Just crazy. But it's crazy late now, so I'm heading to bed. Louise out. April 26th. I painted some more grids this afternoon before work, and then I taught another very chill class. It was just a good time. I love this job. When I got home and had dinner and decompressed with Paul for a while, all of a sudden, it was midnight. Paul went to bed, but I stayed up and worked on my grids. I finished all of them. I feel so accomplished. That's 30 grids in the last few weeks. I'm proud, and they're beautiful, and they'll be very helpful. A lot of my colors are redundant. I could get rid of a handful and still have a very similar range. But regardless, I know how to mix any color now. I've perfected color theory and ascended. Or at least I have a reference for how to mix any color. But that was my day, so Louise out. April 27th. Work today was a charity event, and I got to work with my favorite coworkers. There were lemon bars, orca whale paintings, and a lot of good attitudes. A calm and organized event, surprisingly, considering the size of it. After I got home, I waited around for Paul to get home, and when he got home, he joined his friends online. So I kicked around, thinking of something to do, and settled on continuing a project I've been avoiding. I'm modifying a table I made a year or so ago. The legs don't make full ground contact, so my idea was to fill in the gap with epoxy. I've had a few goes at it, and I've discovered it's hard to get the epoxy in the middle with my current setup. So tonight, I drilled a hole in the plexiglass right in the middle so I could get the epoxy in the biggest gap. Then I mixed up all the epoxy I had left. I wanted to get rid of the nearly empty gallons, so I mixed up a lot, 24 ounces. Then, and only then, did I realize my mistake. The idea of the hole was to plunge epoxy into. Just pouring wouldn't work. And I only have tiny plungers, like teeny tiny, and this big old cup of epoxy with a ticking clock of workability. I sat right down to it and plunged as fast as the physics of the plunging would allow. I found a nice rhythm and decided to go until the epoxy just hardened too much. And I kept going, and still the epoxy wasn't hardening. My plunger was 3 milliliters at max. You know how many milliliters are in 24 ounces? 709. So that's how I passed the evening. Then it was dinner and a show and bed. Louise out. Wrapping up here, I couldn't be happier with this piece. I kept myself up at night trying to develop an approach for the water effect here. The texture of the sand shows through underneath shadows from water droplets, and the water also reflects some sky back intermittently. Usually, I go for a pixel by pixel kind of accuracy, but that isn't as possible with a smaller surface. So I gambled and tried to layer the effects based on my understanding of what I was seeing in the picture. And it turned out perfectly. I love the dark blue shadow from me taking the picture, the little dog and the town in the distance, and my favorite details have to be the 2 water droplets around Paul's feet, one from the board and one from him walking. Very happy with the whole thing. On to the next.